Shri Radha Govinda Madhava, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai Guru Parampara Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9. Chapter 19, yeah? It's 19. I have it marked, but I don't. Chapter number. I think it's that one. And it's text 4. Yes. Tasya udananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitam Vyadatitam udritya Vishanagrena rodashi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodashi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodasi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodasi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Yadam. Merci beaucoup. Vishanagrena rodashi Tasyarudananopayam
Vastakami vichintayan
Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodasi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodasi Tasyarudananopayam Bastakami vichintayan Vyadatitamudritya Vishanagrena rodasi Tasya, of the she-goat. Udara upayan, the means of deliverance from the well. Bhasta, the he-goat. Kami, having lusty desires. Vichintayan, planning. Vyadata, executed. Tirtam, a way to come out. Udritya, digging the earth. Vishagrana, by the point of the horns. Rodasi, at the edge of the well. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. After planning how to get the she-goat out of the well, the lusty he-goat dug up the earth on the well's edge with the point of his horns in such a way that she was able to come out very easily. Purport. Attraction for woman is the impetus for economic development, housing, and many other things meant for living comfortably in this material world. Digging up the earth to make a way out for the she-goat was a laborious task. But before accepting the she-goat, the he-goat underwent this labor. Ahogri etc. sutapta vete jan asya moho yam aham mameti. The union between male and female provides the impetus for gaining a nice apartment, a good income, children and friends. Thus one becomes entangled in this material world. Manginatmarandasya ginagina shalakaya chakshuramitamena tasmai shivadinama mukam karochi vachanam pangam langante takripa shivarundina tarana. Om Shradaya Krishna Stai Budale, somebody Bhaktivikas Swamine Namane, Om Shradaya Krishna Stai Budale, somebody Bhaktivedanta Swamine Namane, Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gurvani Pacharane, Nivasesha Sanyavaya Pashata Deshtarane. Vachikalpa Trubhesh Chakripa Sindhuvi Avachal Ita Namba Venavayo Vaishnava. Does anybody needs a French translation? Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui comprend pas anglais? So he needs somebody to help him. So I was asked to give this class minimal warning, not very long before time for the class. Oh, Krishna Charan is not here. And I'm going to read, the class won't be very long, and I'm going to read some relevant verses and purports to expand on this theme of the relationship between man and woman being the binding force in the material world. So the context of this verse is that Maharaj Yayati, he's speaking this to his wife, Devayani, and he's characterized himself as a lusty he-goat, and his wife as a lusty she-goat. And so he's telling the story of their relationship, but he's telling it as if it's a relationship between two goats. And he did rescue her from a well. He found his wife fallen in a well, and she actually had no clothes on in the well, so he threw down some of maybe his chadar or something, and she was covered. And then he helped her out of the well. And then because of the contact between the man and the woman, and also because she was attracted to him, he was a big, powerful king, they were then they got married, and they enjoyed these conjugal pastimes. So now he has some realization about this, and he's speaking this to enlighten his wife also. So in human life, we are supposed to follow the Vedic system. There's 4 stages to life. There's Dharma. Dharma means following religious duties, worshipping Krishna, and doing everything in a religious way. So the marriage is a religious ceremony. Conceiving children is also a religious ceremony. When the child is born, there's a religious ceremony. We hear in the Krishna book how when Krishna was born, there was a birth ceremony, it's a grand ceremony to celebrate the birth of the child. So at every stage of life, there are religious duties to be performed, right up until Antyesti, which is the funeral ceremony. So human beings are supposed to live according to religious principles, of following the directions of the Shastra. So that's Dharma. And then Artha. Artha means economic development. So economic development is necessary. We have to have food. We have to have shelter. We have to have a means of livelihood to provide these things. So Artha means we have to make some endeavor. But human beings are supposed to live an agrarian life. In a village, you're supposed to live in a village and have an agrarian life where you get your material needs met by agriculture or by cow protection and by these simple way of living. Here he's talking about a well. That means you get your water from a well. You don't make a very big, complicated arrangement with taps and water tanks and pumps and meters and meters and meters of tubes and pipes and. No, you just go to the well with a bucket or a pot. That's much more simple. And then you have more time. So in that way, life is supposed to be more simple, and we have more time for spiritual life. If your life is complicated with all sorts of fancy gadgets, and then you have to have a big security system to protect the house, and then you have to work very hard to protect all these things, and you have to basically spend your whole life maintaining this complicated material situation. And nowadays, husband and wife have both got to work in order to have enough money to maintain a very complicated material life. But actually, human life is supposed to be much more simple to give, and the majority of your time is supposed to be for spiritual life. It's said that in the first 25 years you should study. The girl is trained at home, and the boy is trained in a gurukul, and then at age 25, the girl will be younger, but he marries, and a boy will marry, and then he will have 25 years in household life, and then at 50 years old he should start to be more renounced. At 75 he should take sannyas. In this way, just say there's 100 years, is divided into four sections. But only one section, the 25 years from age 25 to 50, that's when you're actually enjoying, supposedly you're enjoying in this material situation with a wife, with a family. I'm doing this artha, this economic development, and even then it's simple. So the Grhasta, he has duties to maintain the other 3 ashrams. So they have 4 ashrams: the brahmachari, the Grhasta, the vanaprastha, and the sannyas. But the only one who actually works is the Grhasta, because he enjoys his senses. He has a nice house, a wife, family, some land, some cows maybe, like that, his duty to maintain the others who are more austere, more renounced. So then he's supposed to maintain the brahmacharis, the vanapras, and the sannyasis. And that's his giving charity is the Grhasta's duty, because then he's purified. He's enjoying his household life, but at the same time he's purified because he's giving charity. And then after arta comes sense gratification. So that's the sense gratification of the householders. Karma. Dharma, arta, karma. So you have to have arta before you can have karma. Before you can have a nice apartment, you have to get the money to run it, etc. Or you have to work on the land or build a house, or there's some endeavor. You don't just sit and chant Hare Krishna. Of course, theoretically, maybe you could if you chanted very purely. Somebody would come along and offer you all dakshin of different things and different, all the things you might need for your griha. But generally the grihasta is supposed to have his duties of providing maintenance one way or another. And even then Prabhupada said it should be very simple. You should open a preaching center, or you should sell prasadam, or you should live on the land in a farm community. So, and then the final stage of life is liberation, moksha, is the endeavor to give up material life altogether, realizing it's all a waste of time. From a spiritual point of view, it's a waste of time. So modern society is thrown out the Dharma, and they've thrown out the liberation. And we're concentrating just on economic development and sense gratification. And even then, we're not doing anything pious for the economic development. There's no pious things going on, hardly. It's just do whatever you can to get the money, to gratify your senses, to have the opulence of material enjoyment as much as possible. So that's what modern life has become. Because people have become neglectful of the scripture, neglectful of their religious duties, they've become intoxicated. And the more you forget Krishna, the more you're impelled to sense gratification. They go together. You know, the less pious you are, the more you have these demoniac material desires, you know, to enjoy at all costs. Doesn't matter who you exploit. So that's modern world is become totally focused on this gratification of the senses. I was recently in America and they've really got it down. I'm just amazed at how they've got it so fine-tuned, their sense gratification. There's more varieties and bigger and better everything there. But the people they're not happy. They're not any happier, probably more confused, more bewildered. Anyway, so Prabhupada condemns this modern civilization. He says it's a cat and dog civilization. Why does he say that? Because if you're not performing religious duties, if you're not mindful of your spiritual life, if you're not thinking about the future, your next birth, if you're not thinking about how to please Krishna, how to come out of material existence, you're actually living like an animal. It seems like a very strong thing to say. I'm a human being, how you say I'm living like an animal? What is this? But actually, if you're not religious, if you're not pious, if you're not practicing spiritual life, you are just a polished animal. Prabhupada would use this phrase, a polished animal. Or he would say, a two-legged animal. Why is Prabhupada condemning the life so strongly? You know, why is he saying that? Why is he calling us two-legged animals? It's because he wants to wake us up. Prabhupada wants to wake us up to the spiritual duty. That we're making the wrong decision, you know, to put all our energy, all our human intelligence into sense endeavors for sense gratification is not only a foolish waste of time, but it's the way to actually further entangle yourself in material life. So if you spend your life gratifying your senses, you then will become an animal. You literally will become an animal in your next life, because why would you want a human body where you can practice spiritual life? If you don't use it for spiritual life, well then, if you don't use it, you lose it. You become an animal, because your activities are all animalistic. So this is the condemnation. Prabhupada was really quite heavy, and but based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm just going to read some verses that enlarge on this point. The one that Prabhupada quotes in the purport is Ahogri, etc., Sutapta Viter, Janasya Moha Yam Ahamamiti. So moha means illusion. So let me read the... So this is the Sanskrit verse, and it's spoken by Lord Rishabhadev. Lord Rishabhadev is an incarnation of Krishna, and he has 100 sons, and he's speaking to them very strongly. He's educating them, he's giving them spiritual education, he's warning them. It's actually the duty of the parent to warn their children about the dangers of material life and the wisdom of practicing spiritual life. So he says, Pumsastriya mituni bhavam etam, tayo mito hridaya grantim aho, ato griha etc. sutapta vite, janasya moho yamaham mameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So it binds you to your body. Yeah, if you pursue this kind of life, you get completely riveted into your body. You think, I am this body. I am enjoying this life. My purpose is to be happy here through sense gratification. This is your conviction. People are actually convinced of this. And you try to tell them otherwise, they'll get very upset with you. They'll try to make it respectable. The idea is, oh no, we're very respectable people. We're living very comfortably, very nicely, but we're good. We're good. We're very good people. But really, their whole motive is just to enjoy and to. It's based on envy of Krishna. Ultimately, it's based on envy of Krishna, wanting to imitate Krishna. Because spiritual life is based on serving the enjoyment between Radha and Krishna, being a servant. That is spiritual life, being the servant of the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. But material life is based on actually imitating them, imitating that enjoyment of Krishna and Radharani. So this is Prabhupada's purport. Sex serves as a natural attraction between man and woman. And when they are married, the relationship becomes more involved. Due to the entangling relationship between man and woman, there is the sense of illusion whereby one thinks, this man is my husband, this woman is my wife. This is called Hridaya Granti, the hard knot in the heart. This knot is very difficult to undo, even though a man and woman separate, either for the principles of Varnashram or simply to get a divorce. In any case, the man always thinks of the woman and the woman always thinks of the man. Thus a person becomes materially attached to family, property, and children, although all of these are temporary. The possessor, unfortunately, identifies with his property and wealth. Sometimes, after renunciation, one becomes attached to a temple or to a few things that constitute the property of a sannyasi. But such attachment is not as strong as family attachment. The attachment to the family is the strongest. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Satya Samhita. I won't read the Sanskrit, but Prabhupada paraphrases the meaning. He says, sometimes it is found that among exalted personalities like Lord Brahma, that the wife and children are not a cause of bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps further spiritual life and liberation. Nonetheless, most people are bound by the knots of the marital relationship, and consequently they forget their relationship with Krishna. Well, nowadays, you're lucky if people are actually married. Most people will just live together, not wanting to be legally entangled with each other. It's very common. There's a statistic, so many things, you can hear about statistics, but most people in America are born from unmarried parents. There's a majority are born from unmarried parents. Because it's just, people don't want to get married because then they have to get divorced. And it's a big legal entanglement. So it's not actually dharmic, it's not dharmic marriage, to say the least. So the idea is, Prabhupada says here, on the contrary, the wife actually can help further spiritual life. And so that is the idea with devotees. Devotees get married in order to help each other in spiritual life. So we don't condemn that kind of relationship between man and woman. That is called a Grhasta. That means somebody who's practicing spiritual life. But he's married man. Like the Panchatattva, we sing every day the Panchatattva mantra. The Panchatattva, Advaita Acharya was married. Shivastaka was married. Lord Chaitanya was married twice. Lord Nityananda had 2 wives. No, so we're not condemning religious marriage or spiritually based marriage, but what we're condemning is this attachment to sex life, to the opposite sex as the goal of life. That's what's being condemned, because it completely spoils our chances for spiritual life. We get completely caught up in material sense gratification and we lose our way. So we have to remember when I'm reading that, this is the idea is to wake us up, not to get into that foolish mentality, but to practice spiritual life and control. Krishna knows that we are attached to the body, we're attached to the idea of having relationship, family life. Krishna knows, so then he makes arrangement that we can do that and at the same time make progress. But he condemns very strongly. This is Prahlad. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of 2 hands to relieve an itch. Grhamedhis, so-called Grihastas who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. Why is it a source of distress? Why is sex life a source of distress? You think it's a source of happiness? Sorry?
The more you scratch, the more you...
Want to scratch more, yeah. But also it binds you to material life, and it means that you're going to take birth again and again and again and again. So this is, this is the problem. You become attached. And like Prabhu says, you try to scratch the itch, but then you scratch more and more. It's literally like when you have some eczema or something, you scratch it, but it doesn't relieve, it just makes you want to scratch more. Okay, so continuing this same verse. The Kripanas, the fools, who are just the opposite of Brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensuous enjoyment. They're not even satisfied. The people who do this are not even satisfied. Yeah, they're not satisfied. But those who are dhira, and that Sanskrit word means sober. Those who are dhira, however, who are sober and who tolerate this itching, are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. So people who indulge in sex life suffer the consequences. They suffer in this life, and then they suffer in future life. But if you can tolerate the itching, because sometimes you have to, isn't it? If you have some skin disease or something, you have to tolerate the itching. Remember, you have a plaster cast on your limb. They put a plaster cast so that it can heal inside. And inside the plaster cast was so itchy that you can't scratch because it's all wrapped up in this big plaster. You just have to tolerate this itching inside. So you have to tolerate the itching of sex desire. And if you tolerate it, then you can become liberated. Eventually you become detached from the body and detached from the desire. And then you can become spiritually advanced. You can get spiritual. And this is the path of tolerating the mind's demands, isn't it? There's one verse at the beginning of the Nectar of Instruction. It says, "He who can tolerate the urges of the tongue, the belly, the genitals, the forces of anger." Can't remember the other. The force of the desire to speak, and the forces of anger. Somebody who can tolerate all these things, he's fit to be a spiritual master. Okay, I'm just going to read a little bit more on Prabhupada's smashing these Western civilization. Materialists think that sexual indulgence is the greatest happiness in this material world, and therefore they make elaborate plans to satisfy their senses, especially the genitals. This is generally found everywhere, and specifically in the Western world, where there is regular arrangements to satisfy sex life in different ways. Actually, however, this has not made anyone happy. Even the hippies were the people who Prabhupada was preaching to. They renounced materialist society, and they lived in like communes, and they wore unusual clothes and grew their hair long, which was all very outrageous in the 1960s. It says, even the hippies have given up all material comforts of their fathers and grandfathers, but they cannot give up the sensual happiness of sex life. So they gave up, the dharma, the artha, but they didn't give up the karma. Such persons are described here as kripanas, misers. The human form of life is a great asset, for in this life one can fulfill the goal of existence. Unfortunately, however, because of a lack of education and culture, people are victimized by the false happiness of sex life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore advised one not to be misled. Do not be misled by this civilization of sense gratification, and especially not by sex life. Rather, one should be sober, avoid sense gratification, and be Krishna conscious. The lusty person who is compared to a foolish miser. Why is he a miser? Why would you say a miser? If he's a lusty person, a foolish lusty.
He don't use his human body as he should.
Very good. Very good. It means he's not using his body. It's like having a big fortune, but not spending it. So human body is a great asset. But if you don't use it for spiritual life, which is what it's meant for, you have good intelligence so we can understand spiritual life. If you don't use it, you're a miser. Okay, the foolish miser never gets happiness by sense gratification. The influence of material nature is very difficult to surpass, but as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Mam eva ye prapajante mayamitam taranti te. Who knows what that means? Anybody know what that verse means? Mam eva ye prapajante mayamitam. Jai. Very good. So surrendering unto Krishna. If one voluntarily submits to the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be saved very easily. In reference to the low-grade happiness of sex life, Yamunacharya says in this connection, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, I'll just read the English and then we're finished, all right? One more blast of intense information from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him. So this is a real pleasure, Krishna consciousness, because it's pleasure for the soul. Other pleasure, this what we're talking about is mundane pleasure, is just for the body, which is temporary. But the real pleasure is for the soul, thinking about Krishna. Yeah. Ever new pleasure. Whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl in distaste. So he's so attracted to Krishna. He's not interested in jumping around and being like a monkey. No, he's not interested. Yamunacharya had formerly been a great king who enjoyed sexual happiness in various ways, but since later he engaged himself in the service of the Lord, he enjoyed spiritual bliss and hated to think of sex life. If sexual thoughts came to him, he would spit with disgust. Imagine having so. Anyway, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Somebody wants to make a comment or complaint? Like, that's too strong, too strong. I'm only saying what Prabhupada says. I'm only reading from Bhagavatam. Okay. We didn't break Ekadashi. Were we supposed to break it?
No. Before 51.
Okay, so we got a few minutes, okay. Some people say it's nonsense, all this breaking Ekadashi right to the minute. Some people say it wasn't introduced by Prabhupada, but I don't think Prabhupada would object. Anyway. All right, everybody okay? You want to say something?
Say, in United States, there's no marriage, almost no marriage, no wedding, then there is the chaos is coming every day, and we can see the collective murders, in schools. These boys who take weapons and go in schools to kill all other people.
Yeah.
I think we can say it is the conclusion, it is the consequence of that.
The craziness, yeah. Yeah, human society without God is crazy. It's a body without a head. Yeah. You're crazy. We shouldn't be surprised if people are crazy. Yeah. All the churches are empty and the people are crazy. Yeah, there's a connection. Hare Krishna. So, solution is to practice Krishna consciousness and spread it to others. Help others understand the message. Save yourself, save others. Anything else? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Do you know how to stop this?